coffee, trend lines directly associated with the American personality. It's not as if we're crossing our legs and sitting around and pontificating around the greatest philosophical impact in Europe. No, we're like, man, how do we turn this bicycle into a fucking airplane, right? That's America personified, is highly caffeinated, extremely free, really irreverent, and kind of like, fuck you, let's go.
To truly appreciate what the founding fathers did, you have to fully understand the context of the time. You know, England was the global superpower. We were just this ragtag group of colonists with very little resources. And they laid it all on the line, you know, to establish the freedoms that we now have today.
America became a coffee country, like going back to 1773, a bunch of patriots giving the finger to the British and throwing tea into the harbor while they dressed up as Indians. That wasn't specifically to make the British think that it was Indians. That was just to troll the British. And then you look at like how that spun up through Benjamin Franklin, through his newsletters. It was like a social media campaign. It was just 300 years ago. And it was executed perfectly.
Tea and coffee became like cultural icons that split. It was the drink of the king, and then it became pretty much an indicator of what the future of America would be.
And you think of the boldness and the spirit of 76. I mean, one thing that comes to mind is Washington crossing the Delaware, Christmas night, 1776. You know, at the time, a bunch of the re-enlistments were about to expire at the end of the year. We were not in a good place in the war, and we were losing momentum, and Washington was worried that a bunch of those people were not going to re-enlist, and if that had happened, it's game over. So, you know, he spins up this idea of to cross the Delaware on Christmas night. He knows they're not going to be ready for it, and this daring assault to make sure we get momentum back, so those guys will re-enlist on January 1st so we can go win this thing. And I think that's important for us to remember, that you might want to deny it, but that's in our bloodline. It's in your DNA, and you can't resist it. That's who we are.
It's kind of a cool thing to think about Black Rifle Coffee being a coffee company, and the genesis of America in some small fractional thing came from coffee.
Coffee is one of those things that's woven directly into warfighter culture, because sometimes the days don't end. So the start of your day could be 10 o'clock at night, or it could be 3 o'clock in the morning. It still signifies like, we got shit to do, let's go.
Coffee was always the start of the operation. It was, you know, the thing you drink before you brief an op order, before you did a frago. It's like the thing that you did before you threw on your kit, hopefully grabbed a bottle of water, and then went to target. So, I mean, coffee was the start of at least nearly every mission I think I've been on.
So as a new guy, if the coffee pot wasn't full at all times, you're getting beat. So if that puts it in any perspective how important coffee was for our life, we drank way too much coffee.
I used to just dump like 8 ice cubes in a white styrofoam cup and then put coffee in it and just upside down it, because the coffee overseas, I'm sure if anybody's a veteran knows, it's absolute trash.
At one point someone said, I drink it black because that's how John Wayne drinks it. And ever since I heard that, I'm like, well, that's how I have to drink it, because it's John Wayne. There's no fact check to that, so no, nothing fancy. Black coffee, good to go.
The best part of my day is always that 20 minutes where you're just solely focused on the process of making coffee, and the consumption of that drink are this fleeting thing that it always allows you to have this moment for yourself that allows you to love life. And I look back on like me making a French press in Afghanistan in the midst of all this chaos, that they can constantly know like coffee's gonna be there for you. Coffee is gonna support you no matter what.
As a service member, you're looking for little victories, and every incremental positive thing that you can get just becomes exponentially better. So a good cup of coffee makes a shitty place a little bit better.
Generations of men and women have paid the ultimate sacrifice for that one foundational thing, that's freedom. And we need to remember that American spirit that we have deep down inside, and what's hardwired into the DNA of those people that came across the Atlantic a couple hundred years ago. You had to be a maverick to some degree. And you saw that through our founding fathers. You saw that through Washington crossing the Delaware on Christmas night and went against the world superpower to establish the original freedom that we now enjoy.
global war on terror lasted, we'll call it 20 years, just for conversation's sake, to kind of pin a number in it. And as we get further away from the wars, there is still a significant need to take care of those who have actually served the country. So one of the purposes and the missions of Black Rifle is to make sure that we're projecting the needs of the community into the day-to-day lives of Americans so people don't forget.
There's a plethora of different ways that we try to support the community. And Bear from Born Primitive is a dear friend of mine, and him and I linked up.
When I started Born Primitive, it was just this side hustle that wasn't supposed to be anything. It was a pair of compression shorts that my neighbor stitched together while me and her husband drank a gin and tonic, literally. You know, now we have over 100 employees, and we've been able to have such a big impact. As we grow, to me, the bar raises on our obligation to be a leader in the community and be a force for good. So every year, you know, when we go to the drawing board of what we're gonna do, that bar gets raised. And with Born Primitive and Black Rifle, both veteran-owned businesses, this is not just some punchline for us. This is hardwired into our DNA to take care of, you know, the people that have served alongside of us. So I connected with Eric from ForgiveCo.
For as long as I knew my dad, he was a debt collector. He'd buy debt to collect it, and that's how he made money for the family. About 12 years ago, he switched hats, went against the grain, and started to buy the debt to wipe it out.
But at first, you know, I was actually very turned off the idea of I'm not just going to pay off a bunch of bills for people. You know, what I asked him is, could we narrow it down to medical bills specifically for veterans? Because as we know, like, no one deliberately incurs medical debt, right? Usually that happens because of an unforeseeable event or a family tragedy. And he explored it further and came back to us and said that is something they could do. So we decided to pledge a bunch of our profits for a 4-day window to try to pay off a bunch of medical bills, and exceeded our wildest expectations. We ended up paying off $11 million of medical bills. It was over 6,000 veterans. There was one individual, his amount was $183,000, former Marine, partially paralyzed, single father.
He can't go back to the hospital with that much debt. He served our country, he's been there for his kids. He's the exact type of person that we should be helping in this instance.
So this year the goal is to pay off $25 million combined. I think that is a very doable number considering the momentum we got last year. As we know, Black Rifle has a massive reach, so we're absolutely looking forward to working together. You know, during that 5-day window, November 7th through the 11th, it's all hands on deck. And if we can hit $25 million in debt, you know, that'll probably be north of 15,000 recipients that by Christmas will have no medical bills. And how cool is that? I don't want to overpromise and say we're going to exceed 25, but 25 is the number, 25 million, we'll see what happens.